mousse, one of my personal favorite recipes, absolutely love it. I'm going to show you the sous vide process with some beef, and then I'm going to put it all together in a dish with some celeriac puree, some mushroom and Stilton Rarebit tarts. And Darren is going to be doing one of his signature recipes, a strawberry Bavarois, and lots of very exciting bits to go alongside it, which you probably wouldn't have seen. So we hope you enjoy this afternoon. And now I'm going to get cooking. So the first thing I want to do is make the dough for the bread. Now, this is called the Heart's Entwined loaf. You will need to filter on English to find this because it isn't one of the UK recipes. Already in here, I've just used the Thermomix to warm the milk and the butter to the right temperature, just so that the butter and the milk warm through. And then it just will speed up the proving process. So that was 130 grams of milk. Now, the recipe does state full cream milk, but you can use, I've used semi-skimmed. You could even use lactose-free if you wanted to, and just make your other substitutions as well. So that's gone in. I'm just going to click on next because, as you all know, as customers, and if we've got some potential customers on the call, this screen is just giving me the recipe and walking me step by step through what I need to do. So even if you're not a great cook, if you can read, you can use a Thermomix and you can still produce amazing quality food. So I'm going to put in some yeast. It's asking me to put in a teaspoon of yeast. Now, I tested this recipe yesterday and I found out that you do actually need some more flour. So I'll talk you through that in a minute. My yeast goes in, then my sugar goes in. It wants about 20 grams of sugar. So I'm just going to pop that in. Yeah. And then an egg. So let's crack an egg in there. Doesn't want to come out of its shell, that one. Okay, so I'm just clicking on next again. Now, what the recipe is asking me to do here is put the lid on and then mix it all together. I'm not going to do that step just because when I make bread, I just load everything into the Thermomix and then click knead. It doesn't seem to affect it at all. It's just a little bit quicker as well. So it would mix it for 10 seconds, but like I say, I'm not really bothered about that. So I'm just going to go straight into the next step. Now, it's asking me to weigh in 220 grams of flour. When we did this recipe yesterday, and in fact, my daughter did it, she's just 10 years old, and she knocked up this recipe. We found that the dough was actually too wet. So instead of 220 grams of strong bread flour, I'm going to put in 100 grams extra. So I'm going to go for 300. In fact, I'm going to do 325 because when I worked out the amount of liquid in the recipe to the flour ratio, it was way out. It was up at about 85%. And you can't work with dough at that ratio of liquid to flour. So I brought it back down to 65%, which I find the most manageable. And then I'm just going to add in my salt. So it does say put a teaspoon of salt in as well. I'm just adding that on top of the flour so it's not in contact with the yeast. It won't matter too much in this recipe because you will be kneading straight away. But if you'll find with bread machines, if you've used bread machines in the past, they want you to keep the salt and the yeast separate. Okay, so then I'm just going to set off the knead function, and that's going to make me my dough. It just runs for 3 minutes. I'm going to let that run in the background. Move something out of the way because now I'm going to show you how to make the heart shape. So this is some dough I just made up before the call. Just need to get a little bit of extra flour down. Now this is where you don't want to add too much extra flour, just a small amount on your work surface. Then you divide it into 2 pieces. So if I like to be really precise about this, so I get my weighing scales out, and yesterday I think we worked out they were about 280 grams each. So let's give that a little weigh. 312, yeah. So I want them to be spot on 280. That's right. Okay, lovely. Just so they're nice and even. So that will just mean that when you roll them out, you won't end up with one heart being really thick and one heart being really thin. So now you're just going to roll it into a rope. So if I can just bring you forward a little bit like that, hopefully you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to flatten it down to start with and then make a roll. Okay, so I get a roll and then I'm just going to start rolling it with my hands. Now these need to go out quite thinly to a length of about 60 centimeters. So can you see the even pressure? I'm just pulling out this rope and this is really nice and relaxed, this dough. So it's allowing me to roll it out nicely. Now you might notice, I often get a lot of questions about this. Can you see my Thermomix here is dancing a little bit, walking on the work surface? Okay, so when it's kneading bread, you do need to just keep an eye on it because we wouldn't want it sort of dancing off all the way onto the floor. So that's one length done. Nice even roll on there. Don't put too much flour down on this work surface because if you flood it with flour, you won't be able to roll it. You need the tension there to be able to roll it into a nice long shape. Okay, and that will stretch out even further. So let's just get the other one done. It's a bit like when you roll baguettes as well. It's the same sort of technique. You want to go out from the inside out. And then that means you don't get fat bits or thin bits. And you want to keep that tension going. And those of you that received these Thermomix baking mats before Christmas as a little gift from me, this is where they come in really useful. Any bread work or any pastry work, they are absolutely brilliant for. And you can put them in the oven as well, so you could bake on it as well. So if I wanted to, I could arrange my hearts on here and then just lift it straight onto a baking tray. Right, so they're about the right length. I want them sort of the same really. And then you can just stretch them out, just finish stretching them out by hand once your gluten has relaxed a little bit. Okay, so then you want to get yourself, I just need to move them out of the way. You need to get yourself a tray. I've oiled this already. You could put some baking paper down on here or a silicone mat. And then you're going to put one onto the tray. Now, I'm going to see if I can do this your way round. I might get into really hot water doing this, but so that you can see it. Okay, so you want to just arrange one so that it looks like, I suppose, a teardrop shape. And then you just form the heart shape on the top. Can you see that? Yeah. Then, now, trying to do this back to front is going to be a bit of a challenge. So then with the other one, you want to come over the top and then underneath. Okay, don't worry too much about arranging them absolutely perfectly at this point. You're just trying to get that shape, okay? So you've got that. And then again, you want to make that little heart indentation in the top. Sorry about the children in the background. At least they're not screaming at each other. Okay, so that's the interlinked hearts. It's as easy as that. Now, all I do, the rest, I'm going to deviate slightly from the recipe here because the recipe wants you to put them in a 40-degree oven for about 20 minutes, just to start the proving process. My oven won't go down to 40 degrees, which is why I don't do that. But also, I quite like to keep an eye on them as they're rising. And if they're in the oven, I can't. So I am going to just cover them with a little bit of greased cling film over the top. And then I'm just going to leave them on the side now to prove for about 30 to 40 minutes until they're doubled in size. Oh, Michaela, are you recording? No, shall I record?
It's recording. It's recording.
Oh, it is recording. Fabulous, fabulous.
I did miss the introductions, I'm afraid. Sorry.
That's fine. No, don't worry. I think people are, kind of bored of all our introductions now. Those, especially those of us that have watched the number of cookery classes, is absolutely fine. So there is my finished hearts. And then I'm just going to leave them to rise now for between 30 and 40 minutes until they're kind of puffy and almost doubled in size. So let's leave them over there. And then we shall move on to Marie, who is going to start the Parmesan baskets for us.
Hi. Yeah, So we're going to be doing the Parmesan with goat's cheese mousse today. And this recipe, just before we start, has been devised to make 24 of these baskets as canapes. So I'm going to divide the recipe down. Feel free to do the whole recipe if you want to, but I'm going to divide it down by a third. So just do a third of the quantity, and that will give me about 7 or 8 baskets, which is a dinner for 2 with a few leftovers, or a dinner for the larger family. So with just a starter, I'm thinking 2 is probably the right size for starter portion. So,
Marie, can I just stop you there? Have you got a volume on your laptop or a microphone on your laptop or webcam? Because we're getting a bit of feedback. Can you possibly turn the volume down or off?
Is that any better? Can you hear? No?
No, don't worry.
Just a
I don't know
second.
if you can get to your put yourself on mute on one of the device, on the device that you're not using, or turn your microphone off. We'll see how we get on. It's okay.
Is that, yeah, I've not got I've only got one microphone on, so
Okay, fine.
okay,
that is better.
Okay, so this recipe, as well as being made for 24 portions, is actually slightly back to front. We have sent a message to our recipe text just to let them know that, because basically you would start off with grating the Parmesan cheese down, and it doesn't tell you that till right at the very end, which is not the most helpful thing. But we can easily do that. We can grate Parmesan cheese without any worries at all, without any instructions. A lot of us will be used to doing that for risottos, etc. So all I've got here is my 55 grams of Parmesan going in. And I'm just going to go to the main screen and pop it on for 10 seconds on speed 10. So be noisy. That's it, all done. And that's what I love about this machine, is the power of it. That big hard chunk of Parmesan, and 10 seconds, it's completely grated. And that would cost you twice the amount to buy that in supermarkets as well, just the fact that it's already been through that process. So just going to empty that into a bowl, and then pop that up on there. I'm not going to rinse it out because it's going to have cheese in it anyway, so there seems to be no reason to rinse that out. And what I'm going to do is just go on to making the mousse now. So back to the start of the recipe, and it wants the goat's cheese. So as I say, I've divided the recipe by thirds. So goat's cheese goes in. So I'm just using 125 grams for that, and then 50 grams of pouring cream. Oops, throwing that everywhere. And again, lovely with the fact that you can weigh straight into your machine. I say no mess, but I've just made a mess on the work surface. So, and some fresh thyme, which I picked from the garden earlier on, and some fresh parsley as well. So just pop those straight in there, just the leaves, not the whole stem. And then a little salt and pepper. Just a little salt. Pepper just next. Okay. And then just going to pop the lid on and set that to speed 7. All that's doing is blending that down. And then we're just going to scrape down the sides of that and then go again. So it's just starting to break it up. If you can see, it's the goat's cheese mousse there is just it's sprayed a lot of it up the side, so just give it a good push down from the sides, make sure it's back on the blades again, and you're not wasting any. The lid as well. Okay. Put the lid back on and go again. 10 more seconds. So that is basically your goat's cheese mousse made. It's all soft and smooth now, all in there. All it wants you to do is refrigerate that until you need it. So I'll do that in just a second. What we're just going to do now is I'm just going to, you see that? I'm going to get a tray. I've got the oven on 180 degrees, and we're just going to use Parmesan. I'm going to make those Parmesan baskets. So all you do is take a teaspoonful of the Parmesan, sorry, a tablespoonful of Parmesan, and all your instructions are on here. It tells you everything step by step, regardless of whether or not it's actually something that the machine is using. So then we just flatten it out into a circle, roughly the same thickness all the way across. You don't want too many holes in it, because it will come across as very lacy later on. So I'm just going to do about 4 of these for now, just so that we can get a couple of portions out. Just gently flatten it out with the back of the spoon into a rough circle. As you can see, this is easily 4 or 5 portions here, probably a bit more than that. So if you did do the whole recipe, you are cooking for a large family or more people than we can currently have around at the moment. So there we go. That's all we need. I'm just going to pop those into the oven for 180 degrees for 6 minutes, thereabouts, and then pop back to me later on, and I'll show you popping the mousse into the baskets and finishing them off.
Great. So I think it's back to me now, isn't it? And we're going to start with the main course. Okay, right. Elizabeth has just said she can't find that recipe on Cookie Do. It's no doubt because you need to change your filters, take off the UK filter and click the English language filter. But the key thing in that is that you have to remove the UK filter. We have put quite a lot of pressure on the business to get these filters sorted out for us, because it is very annoying to have to manually set filters every time you search for something. And we would like to be able to pre-select those filters and keep those settings. So, and it is something that they are looking at. Okay, so that's gone into the oven. While that's in the oven, I'm just going to get straight on. Oh, brilliant. Henry's saved or shared the recipe. I'm going to get on with the main course. Now, this is going to be, I'm going to dot around a little bit with this recipe. You're welcome to follow it on Cookie if you want to. I've just pre-prepared quite a few things in advance so that it speeds up the process, because there are quite a lot of steps involved. I'm going to talk you through the whole thing from start to finish. And yeah, somebody's in the waiting room, I've just seen. Okay, so I'm going to get started by making some pastry. And I have a little 2-year-old. I thought I was going to have a little 2-year-old helper, but she's disappeared. The sound of pastry makes most people run for the hills. Right, okay, so, but not when you've got a Thermomix. Right, so here's my bowl. I'm not going to bother washing it out from making the dough. Oh, by the way, the dough, I got the dough out while Marie was working away, and I've just put it to prove in a bag. So we're going to make some more bread this afternoon. I'll get one of my children to do that, I think. So put my scales back onto 0. I'm going to make pastry. Pastry in the Thermomix is such a joy. It's so easy to do. And actually, even Alexa, who's 10 years old, said a few weeks ago when I got her to make some pastry, I don't know, why would you buy it when it's this easy to make? And there you go. It takes seconds in a Thermomix. And that really is what the philosophy of Thermomix is all about. Okay, so 70 grams of butter are in. So that has appeared as an instruction on my screen. I'm going to click next. It's asking me to add 140 grams of plain flour. So I'm going to add in my plain flour. I'm not quite sure if I've got enough in here. Oh, yes, just enough. So this is a standard sort of 1:2 ratio of fat to flour. So generally when you're making pastry, you would have twice the amount of flour as fat. Okay, next. And this particular recipe makes a lovely pastry. So it's asking me to put the lid on. I'm clicking on next, and then it's going to be 10 seconds at speed 8. And it's just going to grind that into breadcrumbs. Now, while it's doing it, I'm going to pick up some chilled water. So when you're working with pastry, it's important to keep everything cold. So that was cold butter that went in there. You'll have a much better result, and it won't shrink either, or it shouldn't shrink in the oven. Okay, so I'm going to put in some chilled water, 40 grams of chilled water, or just cold water out the tap. But what we don't want is that butter melting. So carefully add in my 40 grams. There it goes. And then put the lid on again. And now the turbo function is going to automatically come on. Now, this isn't something that actually I've used with pastry before, but when I did it this morning, I was really impressed with it. Lots of the short crust recipes just use a sort of 15-second mix at speed 5. But this one is using the turbo function just to give it those very strong pulses. And just in 4 pulses of turbo, it says give it 2 to 4 pulses. Thanks, Michaela, just explaining to those that have joined us what we're doing. 2 to 4 pulses, and you can see that that's the pastry already formed. So all it wants us to do is tip it out, form into a bowl, then wrap in cling film. So I'm going to do that. Okay. Yes, can you go and ask one of your brothers and sisters to help you? Okay. Right, so here's my bit of cling film. And then I'm just going to fish it out of here.
What's the pastry for? Is this for the tartlets that you're doing?
Yeah, this is for the tarts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the steps of this recipe is to make some little tartlets, and you're going to fill them with a mushroom duxelle and then top with a Stilton Rarebit. It sounds very posh. In fact, it's incredibly simple, but probably the most complicated part is making this pastry and rolling it out. So I'm going to show you how to do that.
I did do this for a dinner party, and it was amazing. And yeah. I changed the Stilton for Gruyere because they didn't like Stilton. So
yep, exactly. So you can change any of our recipes and according to dietary preferences or likes and dislikes. So just because it's on the screen doesn't mean that you have to follow it precisely. So I'm going to just pop that in the fridge because it makes it easier to chill. Okay. So while that's in the fridge, I am going to come back to rolling out the pastry dough. But what I want to do is just go on to the next part of the recipe. And again, it tells you to chill it in the fridge, and then it gives you precise instructions for rolling it out as well. Now, this particular recipe, because it's one of our older ones, doesn't have those on-screen tutorial steps. Now, I don't know if some of you with Thermomix, with TM6s, have seen that on some of the newer recipes, and the baguettes one is a good example of this, it gives you a video on screen of how to roll out your baguettes and how to shape your bread. So now that was one of the newest software updates. It just adds a little bit of extra functionality for you. And it's brilliant for people that may struggle with that part. You can make up the bread dough, but what we were finding was a lot of people were saying, all right, I've got my dough, I'm not quite sure how to shape it. So that's where Thermomix have come in and said, great, we'll do an update and give you on-screen video tutorials to help you step by step through that particular stage as well. There are also, and if you go onto your Cookie Do app, you will see, not on the Thermomix screen, but on a tablet or your phone, if you scroll down, there is a pastries masterclass by a professional chef, which will take you through all the basics of making the pastry and then rolling it out. Okay, So while that's coming together, I am just going to get on with making my mushroom duck style. Now, I made this sort of thing for a beef Wellington and cook it down like a mushroom pate. It's absolutely delicious. So the first part of the recipe is to put the shallot in and halve. Now, I haven't got any shallots, so I'm just using a little bit of red onion. So in it goes. 10 grams of butter. Let's get my butter out. There we are. Drop that in. Now it's asking me to put the lid on. I haven't bothered cleaning out the bowl just because it's only made pastry really. And then turn it to speed 5 for 3 seconds. Actually, I'll keep that here, I think. So that's going to chop your onion and mix it with butter in 3 seconds. I mean, I don't think I'd ever chop an onion again, really. Now I've got a Thermomix. It's fabulous. I used to hate chopping as well. Right, scrape down the sides. Let me see if I can find a spatula. This is my least favourite part of a recipe, scraping. I don't know if anybody else finds that. When I see the instructions, scrape down the sides, I'm like, oh God, not again. Okay, now add in 200 grams of chestnut mushrooms halved. So these beautiful chestnut mushrooms, I've just cut them into half. Just gave them a quick wipe over. They're going in. So I think you should be able to find on Cookie Do the recipe for mushroom pate, actually. That is absolutely delicious. Right, I'm going to add in a few more because why not? I think there was about 250 grams in the packet. Let's do the whole lot. Okay, now it wants me to put the lid on. And then it's going to cook those mushrooms for 7 minutes at speed 1. So it's going to cook the mushrooms, saute them down, and then we're going to blend them afterwards. And at that point, I can just leave it. And I'm going to come back to the pastry. Now, Marie, did you want to, now your Parmesan baskets are ready, did you want to show us those before they cool down? Yeah.
Yeah, they've
brilliant.
cooled down a bit too much. So what I'm just going to do, all right.
Pop them back in the oven.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Pop them back in the oven for a second and it will just soften them back up a little bit. But all you need for this part is something like an upturned shot glass or a small bowl. It even says perhaps an upturned cork or something like that. Find the end of a small glass is a great shape for it. And all you're going to do is pop your Parmesan crisp across the top of it and just use your hands to gently force it into place. And you will end up with little baskets like this, which are perfect for then just piping our mousse into.
Yeah, they look fantastic, don't they? It's such a almost like a chefy trick, but you wouldn't believe until you've seen it done. You wouldn't believe how simple it is.
So I just soften these back up slightly. So if they get too crisp too quickly, you just need to pop them back into the oven, flash for a few seconds, just so that it softens back up a little again. And can you see here, just pick one up with a palette knife, pop it over the top of the glass, and just gently form it with your hands and let it take shape. And just force it gently into some sort of structure, into some sort of place, and then leave it for a few seconds and it will crisp up, firm up, and then you've got a nice little basket to pipe your goat's cheese mousse into. So I'll do the rest of those, and all I've done at the moment is pop the goat's cheese mousse into a piping bag, and then if you pop back to me towards the end, we'll just show you them all made up, because it also suggests on the recipe that you have some cubed beetroot, fresh raw beetroot, some apple and some walnuts, and they're just going to be scattered on the top at the end. But I really do think you need something with a bit of crunch on there and a bit of freshness on there to finish the dish off. It brings it all together and really balances out the saltiness of Parmesan and then the creaminess of the cheese. So some fresh ingredients, even if it's not beetroot and apple, whether it's celery, something like that, would just finish it off. So that's all for me for now on the starter, and we'll just whiz across and show you the finished item later on.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I think it's back to me now. Right, so I've chilled my pastry in the fridge. And then what you want to do is roll it out. Now I have got some tart cases pre-made just to show you, and also to show you a little trick to get some really neat edges. But this is a little bit of pastry that I pre-rolled this morning, so you don't have to stand and watch me make them. I've just got some lovely little tart dishes here. I think I actually picked these up from TK Maxx. They were only a couple of quid. These are non-stick ones, and I find them really useful for this sort of thing. So all I'm going to do is get my rolled out pastry, and you can see you want it rolled to a sort of a thickness of, I suppose, 3 to 4 millimeters. And then you're just going to line that. Let me just get my camera down a bit again. I'm just going to line the tin and just push the pastry down into those corners where the sides meet the base. So that's the really important step. So push it down. I'm just going to use my thumbs for this. Okay, you don't want it too thick. And then where it's just a little bit thick at the edges, just even it out. Okay, and then you can either cut out, this has got quite a lot of excess pastry on it. But what I like to do, I'm just going to cut it off and leave an overhang. And that's going to be really important to stop, just to allow for pastry shrinkage. So if your pastry shrinks while cooking, you've got some extra there around the side, so it won't matter. Okay, so we've got that nicely in the tin, like that. I'm going to prick the bottom of the base with a fork, like that. And then what I'll do is I'm just going to, because this has come up to room temperature again, because I had it out just to make sure it was nice and pliable to show you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it with some baking paper and baking beans. So here is my baking paper. I'm just going to pop that in like that. And then I've got baking beans. Now I've got a mixture of these ceramic beans, but also just literally some hard beans as well, just to make up. Like I needed a few more one day, and I just used some dried beans. So you can use anything that will weigh the pastry down. So I'm just going to pack it with those. Then I'm going to pop it onto a tray and just place it in the fridge for 10 minutes or so, just to chill down again. If I can find space in my fridge, I might actually have to take it off the tray because my fridge is absolutely rammed. Okay, was it up there? Right, so then once you get it out of the fridge, you're going to pop it into a 180-degree oven, and I gave it 15 minutes at 180 degrees with the beans in, and then I removed the beans and gave it another 5 minutes. Okay, and then you'll find that you have your little tart cases that come out. Now let's just move, come out looking like this. I'm just going to take you down again. So you can see I didn't actually get much shrinkage on that pastry, so it meant that it was I chilled it down enough so that the pastry didn't shrink. But sometimes even with chilling, it will shrink. So it's best just to leave an overhang. And then with that overhang, what you want to do is just get a serrated knife and just trim it off to the level of the tin, like this. And then you get chef's perks because you get the lovely little bits of short crust pastry. So you have to do this when it's cold. You can't do it when it's still warm. Well, I find it easier to do it when it's cold. So then you get a beautiful little pastry case out like that. Can you see? And then I have just got a couple that I did earlier as well. Lovely pastry cases. Beautifully baked, not too dark. The recipe does say actually bake until sort of quite dark brown. I prefer them when they're like that. I think they look nicer as well, and they certainly taste nicer. Right, I'm just going to pop those to one side for now.
Great tip, you know, because mine always shrink. So thanks for that tip there, Lindsay.
Great. Okay, now back to the duxelle. So it's cooked away. The mushrooms and the onions are sauteed away for 7 minutes. My machine's finished, so it's telling me I've got something to do. It's beeped at me. and it's asking me to put in 3 to 5 sprigs of flat leaf parsley, leaves only. Oh, I've got a few stalks in there as well. Never mind. I'm going to puree the whole lot, so it doesn't really matter. Okay. And then a sprig of fresh thyme. My thyme's not looking so good in the garden at the moment, so I'm just going to pop in a little bit of dried thyme. And then some sea salt. Yeah. 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. In it goes. Okay. And some pepper. Now, where's my pepper gone? Here it is. A little bit of pepper. Then put the lid on and mix it, blend it for 5 seconds at speed 9. Move that right out of the way. And then it's asking me to scrape down the sides of the mixing bowl with the spatula again. So it's chopped all those mushrooms up. Put the lid on again and turn it to speed 7 for just a final 3 seconds, just to catch any bits that may not have been chopped up sufficiently small. Transfer to a bowl and drizzle with 5 grams of truffle oil. So that's going to come out into the bowl.
When I did this, I didn't have truffle oil, so I have to confess I just did a little bit of olive oil.
Yeah, I mean, I think the truffle oil is just there to give it that lovely truffly sort of, enhance the flavour of the mushroom. Right. The Thermomix is turned off. Ooh. Okay, so that. Then I just like to pick the last few bits up off the lid. There we go. So that is just going to be set aside to cool down. Okay, so right, I've done my tarts. The next part of the recipe is to make a sort of like a Rarebit mixture. Now, I've already done this, and I'll just talk you through what's in here. It's really, really easy. If I just come back to my recipe detail, so you'll notice on the screen next to the next button, there's 3 dots. If you click on those 3 dots, you can bring up the recipe detail, which is really handy if you just want to have an overview of the ingredients or the method of the recipe that you're going to make. Click on the down arrow and it will just walk you through that recipe so that you can see an overview of it. So in this Stilton Rarebit, what I added in earlier was just 40 grams of beer, 75 grams of Stilton, 100 grams of cheddar, and some breadcrumbs and some flour and some egg yolk, mustard and Worcestershire sauce. And it basically just cooked out for, I think it was about, where was it? Cooked out for about 5 minutes. And then you're left with this lovely little mixture, which is going to be used to top the tart. Now, what I did for my breadcrumbs, and I love doing this, is when you've got leftover bread that you make, these are actually leftover garlic dough bits that nobody wanted, or garlic bread. So I put the bread into stale bread that I made a couple of days ago. You might have seen it on the Facebook group, into my machine this morning and blitzed it up at speed 10 for about 20 seconds. Ended up with breadcrumbs, and then I just dry them in the oven. So I put my oven onto about 160 degrees, spread them out onto a baking sheet and dry them for about 15 to 20 minutes, and you get really lovely crispy breadcrumbs. So that's a really good tip to minimize waste and to deal with stale bread that you wouldn't want to eat. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do is, I just want to bring my water in here back up to 55 degrees, because we're going to sous vide, and I'm going to show you how to sous vide the steak. Okay, let's just bring that up to 55 degrees. So I know this is what a lot of you are hoping to see. I'm going to also put my pan on to heat up. So I've got a pan on here, and I will bring you over so you can see what I'm doing. So this is a sous vide fillet that I've already done, just so that I can show you the rest of the process. interestingly enough, this recipe doesn't call for the sous vide process. What it wants you to do is put a beef fillet on a tray, put a little bit of olive oil over it, season it with salt and pepper, and then put it in a very hot oven for 220 degrees for between 4 and 6 minutes. Okay, so that you just really brown up the outside, and it'll be lovely and rare on the inside. I just thought it was a real missed opportunity, actually, to show you. If I'd have done that, I wouldn't have been able to show you sous vide. So I've sort of combined a couple of different recipes here because I get asked a lot of questions about sous vide. So I was just hoping to demystify it today. So here's my fillet already sous vided. What I'm going to show you is how I did that and got it in the bag. So I'm just going to get a fillet out of the oven. It's going to be an extravagant day for us, 3 pieces of beef fillet. So you'll notice this has been chilled back down to 3 degrees in the fridge. I just browned or seared the meat in a very hot pan. I just put a little bit of olive oil over the top of it and then seared it in on all sides in a really hot pan, and I've seasoned it before I'm going to put it into my sous vide bag. That's just a little tip just to bring out the flavour, and thanks to Darren for telling me about that one yesterday. Right, so standard, lots of people stress out that they don't have a sous vide, like a vacuum sealer machine. You don't need to worry at all. All you need is a Ziploc bag and a bowl of water. Now, I don't know if you can see it better maybe on my other camera. So there's 2 cameras on me. There's my Thermomix Wizcam, which is my phone, which I'm talking to. And then I've got Lindsay Sadler on the laptop. So you might see better if you look at the other camera. But I'll try and angle it down. Okay, so all I'm going to do is pop this seared fillet into my bag. And then I'm going to drop it into a bowl of water. Now I want to make sure no water goes into the bag. It's open at the moment. But what I'm going to do, this is called the water what's it called? Dispelling water method or something like that. Michaela, you'll have to look it up quickly and tell me what it is. Water displacement method. There we go. Right. So I'm just going to make sure I'm using the the water just to expel all the air in the bag. Now I'm partially sealing up that bag, so I've got it about 3/4 sealed, and then I'm just pushing the rest of the air out, and then very quickly going to seal it up using that vacuum seal. And you want to make sure that it's going to, in fact, I've still got a little bit of air in there. I can see it because it's floating.
Lindsay, do you want to
Yes.
lower your laptop camera, because we can't quite, sorry. We can see better from your phone camera, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought you probably could. I can't lower my laptop camera. That's as low as it will go.
Your phone camera is the best.
Yeah, okay. So can you see I'm just squeezing out all the air that's in the bag and then sealing it up. All right. So you've got that lovely, can you see it's kind of sucked all the bag into the meat, which is exactly what you want. So there we go. We've dispelled all or displaced all the air. So once that's happened, what you want to do, I'll come back here. You want your water at between sort of 54, 55 degrees if you want to go for reasonably rare. So I filled this up to a maximum capacity with just some water, and I brought it to 55 degrees. I've got my blade cover in at the bottom, if you can see it. I'm going to drop in my vac sealed pouch, and you can drop in, I usually, if I'm doing 2 or 3 steaks, I do them in individual pouches. Drop that in, and it just needs to sit. If I can bring you over, can you see it's sitting inside that water? Okay.
I think the instructions do say that you can put them in the simmering basket if you wanted to.
Yeah, you can if you don't have a blade cover, but you need it inside that water. Okay, then you come back to the sous vide setting, and you select an hour. So this is one of the preset modes on here, an hour. You set the temperature for 55 and just click start. And that's easy, easy, easy. So Right, let me just switch you. Just keeping an eye on the time because I know you're all anxious to see Darren in action. I know I certainly am. I'm going to come over to my hob here and just show you my pan. Now, is it going to, I don't want it to tip forward. Can you see that pan okay? Yeah. So I've got a pan on the heat. I'm going to put some butter into it. Find my butter. We're just going to glaze the pre-cooked sous vide fillet. So it's just put a nice amount of butter in there. This isn't one if you're watching your weight. Okay, and then I'm going to drop my fillet in and just give it a bit of colour. I don't want it, it doesn't need to spend too long in here. And this will just finish the steak off really nicely. Using it in a little bit of butter. Oh, I want to, I don't eat a lot of steak, but this, I'm doing veganuary actually. So this is kind of like really, really hard for me to see this steak cooking. I might have to cave tonight. Then I'm just going to put it onto a little paper towel just to dry off. There we go. Okay, so that's that bit. Just leave that to rest. And then I'm going to just come back on here. Remove that. And just show you how to finish the tart. And then I'll pull the whole thing together at the end whilst Darren is doing his cooking. So you'll be able to see the finished dish. So here's my mushroom filling and then the Stilton Rarebit. If I go back to my recipe.
Oh, watch your hand.
I know, I've got, you can see the little hand in there. Just going to pick it up. So I'll just tell you what. Okay, right, divide the reserved mushroom duxelle between the pastry cases, then spread a heaped tablespoon of reserved rarebit on top of each. So I've just got my pastry cases here. I don't know why I am, right, hang on, darling, can you just move out the way? She's in my drawer, and why I'm leaning over her with an open drawer, but that's the thing us mums do, isn't it? So, lovely, generous portion of the mushroom duxelle going in there. And then I'm going to top with a little bit of this Stilton. Now, it's actually set, so I'll just use my fingers to break it up a little bit and just set it on top. Okay, right, then I'm going to pop it onto a tray. And I think they need to just go into a hot oven, so 180-degree oven for 10 to 15 minutes until golden brown. So my oven's at temperature, and I'm going to pop them in the oven and just cook them for 10 to 15 minutes. Now, the last part of this dish, just put my timer on, is a celeriac puree. Now, this can be done in advance if you're having a dinner party. And all this was I actually halved the amount of celeriac because none of my family will eat celeriac apart from me. And there's quite a lot of cream in this recipe, which I'm trying to be good and avoid this month. So this is about 350 grams of celeriac, 190 grams of double cream. It actually says whipping cream on the recipe, but I just use double cream generally where it says whipping cream. And then it cooks for around, you just cut the celeriac, peel it, cut it into chunks, add the chunks into the Thermomix, add the cream in, and it cooks at 20 minutes at 90 degrees speed 4. It makes a bit of a noise. I'm really glad I did it in advance. And this is always the sort of thing that you can do in advance if you've got guests. And then it saves the stress on the evening, and then you can just heat it up. So I've just popped it into a little bowl with some cling film over the top. So that is me with all my steps finished for the time being. I'm going to hand over now to Darren, who hopefully is going to delight us with the most incredible sounding pudding and make it something that sounds incredibly complex and showy look really easy and straightforward.
So good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to be doing a strawberry Bavarois recipe with like 6 different garnishes. I'm going to make 3 of the garnishes and then show you the other 3, just kind of like how I've done them. So this is super simple. So the first bit we're going to do is we're going to start with the Bavarois, and all you need to do for the Bavarois is egg yolks, sugar and water, and then make sure that you've got the whisk attachment put inside. So don't worry too much about the quantities, because I think there's a PDF getting sent out afterwards with all the quantities on. So, and the water, and then the sugar. So that just goes into the machine. 15 minutes on the timer. Heat at 90 degrees. And speed through. And that's that. So that's just going to get out of the way now for 15 minutes. The beauty of using the Thermomix for this method is to do this without the Thermomix, you'd have to get a pan of water with a bowl and a whisk, and you have to stand there whisking the egg yolks to make a sabayon for like 15 minutes. So that kind of eradicates that. So as that's doing its thing over there, there's a few more bits to add into it later, but we can kind of put it out of the way and move on to the next thing. So the next thing I'm going to make is the burnt butter shortbread. So by burnt butter, all I've done is with the butter, if you can see on the camera, I've clarified the butter, so all the milk solids have separated, and then as the milk solids are separated, they've started to caramelise, and then I'll then reset the butter in the fridge. So I've just done that in a pan. You can do it in the Thermomix, but it does take quite a while because the Thermomix anyway is 120. So just a pan and just slowly cook it out and then reset it. So I'm using the 3-2-1 method for the shortbread. So 3 parts flour, 2 parts butter, and 1 part sugar. And it's super simple to make. So all you do is strip the flour and the butter, and then the sugar. So 3 parts flour, 2 parts butter, 1 part sugar.
Darren, we've got a question. Do we have to clarify the butter? Is that an essential part of doing that?
No, so you can make the shortbread without clarifying the butter. The only reason why I've clarified the butter in this is just for the dish, so it adds a different flavour. So by caramelising butter, it gives it kind of a nutty flavour. So it's just a way of adding another flavour into the dish. So you can just do it with normal butter, but the butter needs to be cold. So if you clarify the butter, you need to make sure that you bring it back to fridge temperature before you use it, otherwise it doesn't work. But yeah, you can use normal butter. I've just done that just because I like the flavour of the clarified butter, like the nutty sort of flavour. It just adds a different dimension to the dish. So once you've got everything into the Thermomix, all I'm going to do is put it onto speed 5 and then just listen for the change in the Thermomix, and you'll hear the dough inside start coming back together eventually. So you can still hear it, and it's changed now, and you can hear the dough start to form. As soon as that dough starts to form, just turn it off. So that's probably taking about 16 seconds. And as you can see inside, the dough is now come together. You don't want to overwork it, because if you soften it too much, you can't work it straight away. So the reason why I've opened it slightly is because I'm going to roll it straight out while it's a little bit softer, and then rest it in the fridge, because I'm going to roll it so it's super thin so that I can get really crispy shortbread. So all I'm going to do is onto a baking mat. Add the shortbread. I'm going to push it down slightly with my hand while it's still soft. Some parchment paper over the top. And then roll it out. So the reason why I'm using parchment paper is because I can get it really, really thin that way. So all I'm doing is rolling it out really thin with parchment paper. So you can, if you don't want to, if you just want to make normal shortbread, you can use this method, and you can roll it out into thicker, and then chop it out with a cutter. If you want, you can roll them into lobs and then slice them. It's entirely up to you. But I'm just using this method because I want the shortbread to be really soft. So really, really, really thin, so I can do some nice shards of shortbread once it's cooked. So then once that's nice and flat, I'm then just going to pop that into the fridge, just to firm up before I cook it. If you put the shortbread straight into the oven without putting it into the fridge first to let the butter reset, your shortbread can sometimes like leak out and it doesn't cook as well. So then once that's then sorted from the fridge, I then just put it into the oven at like 150 degrees between 15 and 20 minutes until it's nice and golden, and it will come out looking something like that you can see. So nice and thin and nice and charred. So then that'll just be used to garnish the Bavarois with later. So that's one of the elements. That's the burnt butter shortbread. Again, you can just do normal shortbread. You can do it in chunks. It's entirely up to you. That's just the method that I've used for that one. So then the next element is the dandelion and burdock jelly. So in another clean jug, I'm just going to weigh out the dandelion and burdock.
As I stipulate, always great to have a second jug.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, or a second Thermomix. And while Darren, just before Darren does that, can I just show you, can you see the hearts now have risen slightly? Now on the recipe, it does ask you to chop up some walnuts and drop the walnuts onto the top to finish it. Now, if I put walnuts onto here, nobody would eat it. So I'm just going to brush it very lightly with water and then put a few grains of the sea salt flakes, the Malden sea salt flakes. You can put pepper over it. What did I put over it? You could put some Parmesan over it if you wanted to, grated Parmesan. As long as you've wet it, the sea salt flakes will adhere to it. And then that is going to go straight into a 180-degree oven for about 20 minutes. And that's it. Right, back to you, Darren.
So all I've done now is I've just weighed out my dandelion and burdock into the Thermomix. I use a good quality dandelion and burdock just because the flavour is so much better. You can use cheap dandelion and burdock, non-branded, but I just feel that for the extra money, the flavour you get out of this is 100 times better. So I would recommend using something like Fenton's or a similar brand just because it does taste a lot better. So in dandelion and burdock jelly, dandelion and burdock's gone in, a little bit of sugar has gone into there as well. And then all I'm going to do is use my Thermomix just to bring that up to 90 degrees. So about a minute and a half, set to 90, speed 3. I have got the whisk in there just to keep moving. And all I'm really doing now is I'm getting the dandelion and burdock and the sugar dissolved together and enough heat in there so then when I add my gelatine it softens. You don't have to boil it to add the gelatine. So the good thing about doing it in the Thermomix is you don't have to keep an eye on a pan of dandelion and burdock that could boil over. So I know that the temperature I want it to be is 90 degrees. So I've set it to 90 degrees so that I can see on my thing that it's going to reach that. And as soon as it reaches that, then I know I'm at the right temperature to go to the next stage. So that's just taking in.
So, Darren, so someone's just asked what flavour / taste is that dandelion and burdock? And I guess if nobody's had dandelion and burdock, but it's quite a herby, earthy taste, I think, from my point of view. I don't know how you would describe it.
Yeah, it's kind of, so the Fenton's one has a little bit more star anise, so it's got more of an aniseedy sort of flavour to it. But it's quite unique dandelion and burdock, the flavour. So it's quite hard to explain exactly what it tastes like. It's just kind of like, yeah, quite florally, quite aniseedy. But with this dish, it works really well because it's completely different flavour to everything else that's going inside. So it works really well with strawberries. Like the difference of flavour, sweet against the aniseed works ridiculous as well. So.
I normally only have dandelion and burdock with my fish and chips, so this is really interesting. Tell the author.
So dandelion and burdock, I have to have a pan. It's just an unwritten rule.
Yeah.
On my machine, I can see that it's at 45 degrees, so I need to wait for it to come to 90 degrees, because then I know that everything's dissolved inside. It depends on, obviously, if you had the dandelion and burdock in the fridge, you've had it on the side, how long it does take to get to that 5 degree. You can see on the machine, it gives you a live reading of what temperature it's reached. So now it's at 50, so it'll only be a couple more seconds. So while that's with the temperature, I've got my gelatine. So what I've done with the gelatine is I've simply softened it in water, squeezed out the extra water to put bloom in. So I've bloomed the gelatine, and that's ready to go in as soon as it hits the right temperature. I'm using a professional grade gelatine called bronze gelatine. So when you are making these recipes, I don't tend to use gelatine powder because it's a different quantity. So I've always used gelatine leaves. So I would recommend using gelatine leaves if you can get them. It's just a better grade and it's a better gelatine. So that's what you use in a professional kitchen. And so the Dandelion and Burdock jelly is about there. So it's about 65 degrees at the moment.
I think you can get bronze grade gelatin in Waitrose actually, if anybody wants to have a look.
And is it vegetarian version?
No, so no, this is just the normal gelatine, and you can get vegetarian gelatine, but again, I've never really used it because it's in a restaurant. You wouldn't use vegetarian gelatine for a normal dish, you see. So you probably could swap it in and out, but you potentially have to change the quantities depending on what the gelatine packet said. I believe it's got a different set ratio to normal gelatine.
Thanks.
So that's now reached the 90 degrees. So all that's done inside, if you can see that, it's literally just melted the sugar into the dandelion and burdock. So now all I'm going to do now is add into the gelatine, turn off the heat, so no longer need the heat because there's enough heat in there. Set it to 30 seconds, speed 2, and then all that's doing now is melting the gelatine into the jelly, ready to serve. So I'm going to set the gelatine in a bowl. Sorry, the jelly into a bowl. You can kind of set it into whatever you want. You can set it into shot glasses and just eat it. You can set it into a tray and cut it. I'm going to use it later on. I'm going to spoon it out and use it to garnish. So I'm just going to literally set it into a bowl, which I'll show you in a second because I've got one set. So that's the 30 seconds. So just have a quick look inside, make sure the gelatine has melted, which it has. And then that's just going to get poured straight into the bowl. And then the best thing to do is to kind of leave it at room temperature for at least an hour, just so that temperature does come down. If you put something into your fridge that's too hot, it can wreck your fridge and make your fridge a little bit too warm. So the best thing to do is just to kind of leave it on the side for an hour, just the core temperature comes down a little bit, and then pop it in the fridge. It's always best for the jelly to set overnight, at least 12 hours usually. But you can get away with using it after 6, but it's just habit. I'd always make it the night before and then use it the next day. So I'm just going to put that to the side there. So once it's set overnight, you just get a nice jelly, got a good wobble to it, and that's ready to go. So that's ready to use next dish. So we've got 2.5 minutes on the Bavarois. So I'll talk through the next stage of the Bavarois. So when that's finished, the next stage will be to add the gelatine. So again, I've got the gelatine here for the Bavarois that has, again, been bloomed, so it's been soaked in water, squeezed out the excess water. So that's ready to go. The next thing that's going to go in there would be the strawberry puree. So the strawberry puree I've made, but you can buy strawberry purees like that you use cocktails. The only thing, if you do buy it, I would be careful of the sugar content because sometimes they are quite high in sugar. So if you do not make it, just be really careful on the sugar content. So all this is to be made though, so it's just fresh strawberries or frozen strawberries or strawberries that are kind of on the way out. Trim off any of the greenery and then just blitz them. That's it. So blitz down in a Thermomix and then pass through a sieve to get rid of all the seeds that are inside. If you're using frozen strawberries, obviously defrost the strawberries first. So that's kind of the next stage for that. So that's the strawberry puree. And then the final thing for the Bavarois is cream. So this is just normal double cream. You can use whipping cream, but if you use whipping cream, then potentially it won't set as firm because it's got different fat content. So I always use double cream just because it sets a lot better. And all I've done with that is I've semi-whipped it. So it's not soft peaks, it's not hard peaks. It's kind of just whisked until it's slightly starting to thicken. So you don't want it to be thick, like, and set. It just kind of needs to start thickening. So yeah, that's probably, you can do it in the Thermomix if you want to, but again, I've just done it in a pan, in a bowl, so it's just easier. So that's only slightly starting to thicken.
So this is the only problem with these professional chefs, everyone. You stick to your Thermomixes, all right?
I mean, yeah, you can. So once this is finished in here, you can, once you've done the next 2 stages, you can take it out, wash the Thermomix, and kind of use the Thermomix to then whip the cream again. But I'm just for speed. I mean, I've got this Thermomix that I've used for 2 recipes already. And it's just for speed, so I don't have to kind of show you me washing stuff out. So that's at its 15 minutes.
I'm just loving your setup there, Darren. It's brilliant. Your stainless steel workbench. Yeah, it's really interesting to see it.
This is my prep kitchen for my business. So when lockdown came, I moved back home. So it's like a industrial kitchen. So this is kind of like my workplace that I work from for the dinner parties, and it's nice. It's got like a little fridge. It's just really cool. So yeah, that's the Sabayon. So as you can see, the egg yolks and the sugar have whipped, and they've gone really pale. So to, like I said before, to get that on top of a stove, you'd be there for 15 minutes whisking away. So the beauty of this is the Thermomix does it for you. And I've been able to make other things as that's been taking its 15 minutes. So the next stage then will be to add the gelatine. So the gelatine, I'm going to turn the heat off, it's no longer needed. 30 seconds, and then speed 2.5. And then all that's going to do now is let the gelatine mix through to start dissolving into the rest of the mix. So again, let's have a look inside. Make sure you can't see any lumps of gelatin, which there isn't. So the next stage is then to add your strawberry puree. So every last bit of that strawberry puree. And again, if you do make the strawberry puree, just make sure you do sieve it, so you get rid of all the seeds, because the seeds will give it like a grainy texture. And then again, 30 seconds. This time on speed 1. And then all that's going to do then is incorporate all the puree into the Sabayon. So when it comes to setting your strawberry puree, your strawberry Bavarois, you can set it in pretty much anything you want. I'm going to set it into bowls, just so I can then garnish on top. You can set them into glasses. You can, if you've got acetate and rings, you can acetate a ring and set it into the ring, and then take the ring off and peel off the acetate. It will hold. It's a good set. But just for ease, I tend to set them into bowls if I'm doing them at home. So then that's the strawberry puree that's been mixed in to the Bavarois. So then the next stage is to then fold that into the semi-whipped cream. So straight out the mold, straight into that. So when you're doing this, if you have whipped your cream too much, the mixture is just a bit too thick. So you want it to be nice and runny still, because it's easy to pour. And then all I'm doing then is literally folding it through, mixing the cream into the Bavarois. And as you're mixing, you will see it start to thicken, because as you're putting the cold cream into the warm Bavarois mix, it does start setting pretty much instantly. So you need to make sure that if you are doing this, you've got your bowls ready to start setting. So the recipe that we put out for this, I have adapted it so it makes 2 good portions. So, but you can double the recipe, the same cooking method, to make more portions, but I've kind of knocked it down so it kind of makes 2 really good sized portions. And then all I'm going to do now is that's all mixed together, is add that to a piping bag. You don't have to put it into a piping bag. It's just, well, chefs are quite messy, so we need every tool to help me work tidy. And then I've got some knife bottles here, which I'm just going to trim the end. And then it just pours straight into the bottles. And then that's the Bavarois done. So all you do then is that go into the fridge for, again, if you can leave them overnight, then it's probably better, but minimum 4 hours really, just so everything nice and set. So then the last options, the last things that we're doing is, so after 4 hours, it'll look something like that. So just a nice firm set, ready to go. So I've also got some sous vide strawberries, which I did previously. There is a recipe for sous vide strawberries on the cookie dough, but this is just a personal recipe that I've done. So all I've done is chop the strawberries in half, a little tiny bit of sugar, not a lot, just to kind of coat them, and then vac them, put them into an 80-degree water bath for 8 minutes, and then as soon as they've finished the 8-minute cooking process, straight into ice cold water, and then just left them in the fridge, and then it's left like a little bit of a juice. So that's one of the methods, one of the elements we're going to be putting on top. And then I've also made some crystallised white chocolate. I think you can see that. So this is really easy to make, but it's not really made in the Thermomix. But if you didn't want to be adventurous in making crystallised white chocolate, you could just get some white chocolate and blend it in the Thermomix to make like a chocolate crumb. But this has been made with sugar and water, cooked on top to 130 degrees. And then all I've done is added some white chocolate into that, and then whisked it with a whisk or a spoon or a fork. And then as the chocolate melts in, it kind of starts setting the sugar syrup, and it just crystallizes. So it's quite a fun thing to do. It's different. You can't really replicate that any other way other than doing it for the dish. And again, with a dish, it adds quite a different texture to the dish. So it is really nice, and it is quite easy to make. And I would recommend having a go because it's delicious and it's addictive. So just to let you know, so that's that element. And then I've also made the strawberry sorbet. So this is actually a Thermomix recipe. I think it's from the Green Book, so you'll be able to find it on Cookie Dough. It's one of the very, very first Thermomix recipes I ever used out of TM5. All I've done is slightly adapted it, so I've not used the egg white, and I've just reduced the amount of sugar. So I've used 10% sugar to fruit, so I've used 300 grams of fruit to 30 grams of sugar, just because the rest of this dish has quite a lot of sugar in it. So all I've done is adapted it slightly just to change it so it's not too sweet in the dish. And then the final element I'm going to be adding is just a tiny bit of fresh mint, and that's just to give it some freshness. So that is the dish in its whole. I mean, do you want me to plate one at Wild Indie, or do you want to go back to you guys and I'll have one plated ready to come back to?
Just plate it up, Darren. I'm fascinated watching you.
Darren, you've got an
anything to save me having to cook again.
You've got an absolute captive audience, Darren. I've never seen him so quiet and attentive.
So somebody's asked, Darren, if you could just explain your crystallized white chocolate process, along with when you send me the recipe that I can send out to people, if you wouldn't mind just saying very briefly how you do the crystallized white chocolate,
yeah, sure.
So that people have got it in front of them.
Yeah, sure. So I'll explain it now, but I'll also write it down. So you get 100 grams of sugar and 2 tablespoons of water. You put it into a pan on a low heat, just so the water and the sugar starts to melt, and then you can turn the heat up to a medium heat, and then just with a sugar thermometer in the pan, take it to 130 degrees, and then take it off the heat, and then separately you'll have 100 grams of white chocolate. If it's the little squares, just make sure it's in squares ready to go, not in a big block. You can use Colettes, they work just as well. And then simply you add the chocolate into the pan, and then with a spoon or a spatula or a whisk, to start moving it, and as you start moving it, the chocolate melts into the sugar, and it's starts crystallizing the sugar because of the water in the chocolate, and then eventually it just literally starts going into like a crystallized crumb. It's crazy. It's really, I'd really recommend having a go at it because it is really cool. Like when you're watching it kind of come together, it blew my mind the first time I made it. And like
Can you do it with other types of chocolate as well, or is it better just with white?
I've never tried.
Okay.
I've only tried with white chocolate. Potentially, you could probably do milk chocolate because milk chocolate's 52% solids, whereas white chocolate's 27%. So I'm not sure because of the fat content in other chocolates if it makes a difference with the cocoa content. But it definitely works with white chocolate. I don't know why it wouldn't work with milk chocolate. Potentially, you might have to remove some of the milk chocolate. But again, I've never tried. It's just something I've always done with white chocolate.
Yeah, and that's why you can't make it in the Thermomix as well, because you need to get that sugar solution up to 130 degrees, and you can't do that in a Thermomix. The highest it will go is 120.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, just book Darren for a dinner party, gang.
Yeah.
So let me get all the elements back up.
Yeah, good point, Claire. Can't do that yet in a Thermomix. Yeah, so the Thermomix will cook up to about 160, or in fact, it cooks up to a bit higher than that through sugar stages, but you have to follow a guided recipe for that. And these guided recipes using the sugar stage function do not like being interrupted or fooled. They will not restart if you if you press the button and want to have a sneaky peek, as I've done when I've tried to make caramel, then it won't start again. Where does Darren come from? Outer space. No, he's fantastic, isn't he? Darren comes from, he lives up near Lincoln. In fact, Darren, why don't you answer that?
Yeah, so I'm a Yellow Belly born and bred, so I live in North Highcombe in Lincoln, and I love Lincolnshire. I'm a proud Yellow Belly. I've worked in Lincoln pretty much all my life. I started chefing at the age of 15 while I was still at school. And yeah, kind of went from there. So all I've added to the bowl so far is I've added the caramelized, the jelly. So all I've done with the jelly is I've literally just taken a spoon out and put it on top. Some of the Sous Vide strawberries.
Did you set the jelly in, Darren? I missed that bit. I don't know if you explained it. Did you just set it into a bowl? Oh yeah, fine. Yeah.
And then I've just taken bits out. I mean, this jelly's beautiful if you just have it with literally just some fresh strawberries and a bit of like natural yogurt. If you're kind of watching your weight a little bit. This jelly, like if you like Dandelion and Burdock, you'll love this jelly. And even if you don't like, my partner, she doesn't like Dandelion and Burdock, but this is one of her favorites.
She loves the jelly. Love it. Yeah. And what's the difference between a jelly and a gel, or isn't there really one?
So if I was making a gel, I'd use something called Ultratext, which is a natural made from a seaweed, and a gel is kind of usually pipeable. So Ultratext is this product that you can literally add to any liquid, and it turns it into a jelly, like solidifies slightly, whereas a jelly generally is set. So that's the kind of difference. A jelly would be pipeable. Okay. Jelly's usually set. So
brilliant. Thank you. I'm getting my money's worth while he's on. To watch Darren.
See Darren on MasterChef with Monica.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Darren. Did you just show us there? Sorry.
Right. So yeah, just a little bit of the crystallized white chocolate on top, just to cover.
How are we going to follow that? That looks like a big portion as well, Darren.
Yeah, so these are designed to indulge on.
Have you just done a really chefy quenelle there?
Yeah, I've tried. It's been cool that I've just made, but it does turn out better when you make it straight away. But, and then so that's the strawberry sorbet on top, and then I'm just going to put some of the shortbread in. And then just finish it off with a tiny bit of fresh mint. So what I'm going to do with the mint is I like to use the very centres, tiny leaves, just because they're quite strong flavoured. And that is the dish as a whole, so I don't know if you can quite move it around. So
Wow,
it's
look
kind
at
of all built up on top. So you've got the strawberry Bavarois underneath, the Sous vide strawberries, the sorbet, the caramelized white, crystallized white chocolate,
that
and
is
the
amazing.
burnt butter
That-
shortbread.
oh, do you do
So-
deliveries, Darren?
If I was doing that for a
Only
dinner
20
party-
minutes up the road.
Yeah. So
Might
for a
have
dinner
to take
party,
a drive a bit later.
I usually plate it on a plate, but just for this, it's just to show how simple it is. It's all about the combination of the flavors. So I've kind of done it in a bowl to kind of show that it is something you could do at home quite easily, and less messing up. So you kind of, it's all set into the bowl, and then every mouthful just gives you an explosion of flavors. So that is it, finished.
How do people follow you on Instagram, Darren, or Facebook?
So on Instagram and Facebook, sorry. So it's Thermomix by Darren Rogan on Instagram and Facebook, and then my other business is just called By Darren Rogan. So you'll probably find both by searching By Darren Rogan.
Brilliant. Okay, so thanks for that, Darren. That looks absolutely incredible. I can't wait to give all those separate elements a go, and it's a real pleasure to have you on sharing your expertise this afternoon. So back over to another professional, Marie Perry, who is hopefully going to show us her goat's cheese mousse and how to plate that up. This is a little bit of a diversion for Marie, because normally she's found elbow deep in chocolate, being a fantastic chocolatier.
I've got my Valentine chocolate order in.
I have actually, I have actually already plated up the goat's cheese mousses, but just throwing them around the plate there. If you can see there, we've literally just got the baskets. I've just piped the goat's cheese into the centre, ever so easy. It doesn't have to even be in a piping bag. You could just take a scoop out and place it in. It's absolutely fine. And then we've just put some chopped beetroot, tiny little squares of beetroot, and some little sticks of apple and walnut on the top. So you've kind of got that. If you think about a cheese board, you quite often serve it with some fruit on the side. So you've got the apple and the nuts there. And I just think it looks really impressive. And actually, it's super, super easy. It really doesn't take very much time at all. I mean, what it took 15 seconds twice, so 30 seconds worth of whipping with goat's cheese and the cream together. And the Parmesan twirls take 10 seconds plus 6 minutes. So, you know, within 15 minutes, you can literally have these made, and they look and taste delicious.
Fantastic. Right. Now, I know, Marie, you want to share your cocktail with us, don't you? You're desperate to do that. Can I just plate up my main course, and then we'll hand over to you, because I think it'd be really lovely to finish on you, actually. Right. So I've got my various elements ready to go for my main course. Let me just angle you down again, so hopefully you can see this. I've got here's my celeriac puree. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of celeriac puree onto the plate. Like that. And then I have got my sous vide beef, which I've just kept under some foil. I've sliced it up. Can you see how beautifully that is cooked? And because I seared it, all those juices stayed into the meat. So I'm just going to arrange a few slices of that over the top of the celeriac puree, like that. Oh, it's fun, proper cooking. I'm such a family cook these days. I love having a play with stuff like that. Then I'm going to put one of those gorgeous tarts on the side. And then just to finish it off, a little bit of chopped parsley. Let me just move that out of the way. Just sprinkled over the top just to finish the dish.
I have to say, I'm in love with sous vide. I did duck last night, and you would never go back to regular cooking.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's fantastic.
That. Wow.
Yeah, looks brilliant. And you've seen that's all cooked really in real time. Yes, I did a little bit of prep in advance, but you know, the main bits are super easy. It looks really impressive, tastes amazing. Okay, right, over to you, Marie.
Right, Marie.
I've just changed cameras, so hopefully you can hear me. So I'm going to do the cocktail. So some similar elements to what Darren had earlier on. So touch base on that. Sorry, I've got feedback coming through my phone there. So I am going to do Black Forest Romance is going to be the cocktail for today. And I created this specifically for our friends who our Thornbridge area, just on the edge of the Black Forest. And they were getting married this year. We should have been there to support them, but unfortunately, things that happened, that didn't happen. So I created this Black Forest romance for them, basically. So it has a personal meaning to me as well. But also, it's really just like a velvet liquid version of everyone's favourite gatto, really. So we're going to start off by making a black cherry syrup. I've already made that just because it needs to cool in advance. I'm just going to show you how easy it is to do. So literally all you need is 100 grams worth of frozen cherries and just 75 grams of water and 60 grams of sugar. Put them all in the Thermomix with just a teaspoonful of vanilla extract and put that on for 15 minutes, 90 degrees. So we're just using the manual control off the front of the Thermomix. So 15 minutes, 90 degrees, and put it on to sort of speed 2 to just sit there and do that. When that's finished, you're just going to strain it. So as Darren was saying about making the fruit puree for the Bavarois, and we do exactly the same thing here. Just put cherries into a sieve, a gentle squish. You don't want to push all of the fruit through. You just want to break the strawberries. I'm on the last recipe. Break the cherries down so that you are getting all the juice out. That's all. And anyone that follows me will know that I'm all about zero waste. So the cherries that are left, quite easily use those as a compote for your porridge or your yogurt in the morning. Those to one side for now. So we've now got our cherry syrup made, and so we need the rest of the components for the cocktail. So the first thing that we will be using on top of that is kirsch, because you wouldn't have Black Forest gatto without kirsch to back up the cherry flavour. That's going to give it the warmth and the real alcohol level in there. The next thing that we're going to use is creme de cacao. You can get it in white or brown, and creme de cacao is just a cacao infused, so pure chocolate infused liqueur. So you can buy it like this, and you can buy it clear or brown. Brown is natural, white is filtered. Or you can make your own, as I have, which is so simple. All you're going to do is fill up a small bottle with vodka and add in some cacao nibs, which you can buy from any supermarket these days in the health food aisles, and pop those in and just give it a shake. And after about 3 or 4 days, you'll see the colour start to develop, and you know that it's taking on and imparting flavour. I do lots and lots of infusions with vodka and gin, so this is one of my favourite things to do. This has been in for about 4 or 5 days now, and you can see it's got a good rich colour, and it tastes of real chocolate, real deep dark chocolate, but it has no sweetness to it. So we've got the sweetness going to be coming from the cherries and also from another component, but you're going to get a lot of chocolate flavour from that. But the other thing that we're going to be using is a cream, like Bailey's, or you could use a Godiva chocolate liqueur or something like that. Or for those of you that followed our Christmas cook-along, beefy liqueur, it's back. Those are all the components that we need, along with some aerated cream. I'm going to do that first of all. And in the Thermomix, all I'm going to do is put the butterfly whisk in, nice and secure, and I'm going to put in 150 grams, I think it was. Just double check. Yeah, 150 grams. I decided of cream. Oh, sorry. What's going on? See you in a bit.
Yeah. Marie, when you're talking, when you look at the camera, you're much clearer. When you look away, it goes out a little bit. So
When I'm looking down here.
yeah, when you're looking at us now, it's really clear.
Thank
When
you.
you look away.
So just weigh that up to 150. And again, the beauty of the Thermomix is if you're making cocktails, if you don't make them all the time, you perhaps haven't got all the right equipment, you've not got a shaker, you're worried about your measures, you're trying to measure everything out, you'd have lots of little jugs around. No need, it's all in one, nice and easy. Go back to that main screen again, and literally we're going to put on to whisk for 30 seconds. We want the cream to be aerated, we don't want it to be wet.
Oh no, we keep losing you again, Marie. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just turn my camera over. Can you hear me any better now?
Yeah, that seems clearer. Would you like me to unpin you or leave you?
No, I think that's okay, but I think it's the microphone on this side and the camera on that side. I think we're okay.
Thanks.
As long as you can hear me. Yeah?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got the cream in, and we're just going to put that on speed 3 for 30 seconds. So this is not as sweet as it might sound. It sounds like it's quite sweet, but it's actually really well balanced. I had to try quite a few to get it right.
Will we have instructions for this one as well, like Darren's dish?
I wish she lived closer so I could sample these cocktails. It's a hard life, isn't it, Marie, having to develop. I said it's a hard life having to develop cocktails for a business.
Honestly, it really is. You should have seen the state of the kitchen when I was doing this. It's literally bottles everywhere. And, you know, my other half comes home. I've just realised I've now got a bit of an issue because I've had that cream out sat on the side for a while. So if anyone wants to know how to make butter in a minute, that's how you make it. So, because the cream had warmed up rather than out the fridge. Right, let me resolve this issue. So what I'll do is I'll just proves everything's live, isn't it? I'll make the cocktail up, but you're just gonna have to bear with me a second whilst I rinse my bowl out. Talk amongst yourselves.
Has anyone got any questions for us or for Darren while we've got him on? I just want to show you the bread. There we go. That's the love heart, the intertwined love hearts bread, which I think looks really effective, doesn't it? And it's going to be a nice gift for one of my neighbours whose birthday is tomorrow, actually. So I'm going to take that round after I finished on the demo. Are you all enjoying? I hope you're all enjoying it. I hope you're all going to try some of these recipes. You may not want to start by doing all of them for a single meal because you would be in the kitchen for quite a long time. But it's been really interesting just to show you how we would cook things, just a few different techniques and how professionals also would cook and would be preparing these dishes for you. Oh, brilliant. So yeah, if you just want to pop your feedback in the chat, that would be lovely.
Lindsay, we did have a question. Will Marie also provide the recipe for her cocktail? Yeah.
Yeah. So couldn't see the bread. So can people see that now?
Yeah.
Somebody couldn't see the bread. There we go. I'm just holding that up.
Spotlight you. There you go. Spotlight you.
Ah, I wonder. That's right. So there's my bread, which just looks really effective, doesn't it? It's a lovely way of presenting bread. And again, really easy to do. So while Marie is resolving her issue, what I just wanted to say is if any of you want to organise your own little demos with some friends just to showcase the Thermomix and what is possible, we love sharing the Thermomix with you, with our customers and with new people as well, inspire them and show them what this amazing machine is all about. Lots of people have heard of Thermomix but may not know what it is, but many people haven't heard of Thermomix. In the UK, the Thermomix, it's one of the smallest markets in Europe. In fact, for the first time last year, we did overtake Austria, but Thermomix is huge in Italy and Eastern Europe, and Germany, and Spain, and France as well. But in the UK, it's still really the sort of the best kept secret in the restaurant industry. So that's where you come in, and we would really value it if you could help us spread awareness of Thermomix amongst your friends and family. You love your machines. Let's show everybody how incredible they are. And of course, if you organise a demo with your advisor, not only will you find out about new recipes, but you will also get a little gift as a thank you for inviting 3 or 4 of your friends as well. So please do speak to your advisor about how to go about booking a demo tailored to your needs. How are you doing, Marie, there?
Yeah, I'm back.
You're back.
So,
I love the fact that you've got enough cream. Lots of people would have gone, oh no.
No.
Fine.
So basically, don't leave. Oh, which camera? Michaela, if you just flip, there you go, perfect. So don't leave your cream out for 2 hours before you use it. There's your first tip. Otherwise, you'll be making butter rather than fresh cream. So just take the whisk batch out and just scraping this into a jug. So just got a very light whisk on that, just for that 30 seconds or so. So you want it aerated, you do not want it whipped. So I'm not going to worry about rinsing the bowl out because we're going to be adding it all in there anyway. So back onto the recipe like we were supposed to do in the first place. So we're going to take the black cherry syrup and weigh it in. So we're going to go 100 grams of the black cherry syrup. There we go. And then reset the scales. And then we're going to go for 50 ml of 50 ml of the cacao. So that's the chocolate flavoured liqueur. Just make sure if you're not filtering it that you don't pour your cacao nibs in as well. And this is going to make 2 good sized cocktails.
So is that very high in alcohol content, Marie? I know that's a silly question, but
Yeah, it's basically straight infused vodka. I mean, yeah, anyone that knows me knows that it will be. So basically, just infused vodka. So it is going to be at 40% basically. So that and the kirsch are your high content. When you come to your chocolate liqueur, that going in, which is going in next, 50 mils of that, that is much less because obviously that's got the cream and the chocolate and everything in it as well. Bailey's is about 14%, so 50 grams of that.
And did you say that's your homemade chocolate liqueur that you've just put in?
That's our toffee liqueur from Crystallised. It's not the same batch.
No.
But it is the toffee liqueur from Crystallised. And then we're just going to go for 25 grams of the kirsch, because that is quite strong, quite kicky, but it does reinforce that beautiful cherry flavour. And then, I can find my lid, there it is. Pop your lid back on. And all we're going to do now, as well as this, is add in 3 or 4 large cubes of ice. Now, normally when I'm doing cocktails, I'm all about straining it to take the ice back out, just using the ice to chill it down. As you mentioned, Michaela, this is quite potent. So the ice that's going in there is actually going to be blended in, and that does a couple of things. One, it's going to help give you a nice mouthfeel because with the cream and the Baileys or the toffee liqueur, it can be quite thick otherwise. So it's going to dissolve that down so it's a nice drinkable texture. It's also going to dilute the alcohol slightly, as well as obviously chilling it down. So what we're going to do is use the turbo function from the front screen, and we're going to just blitz that 3 times. You can hear the ice rattling around in there. And 3 or 4 times. As soon as you can stop hearing the ice, it's good to go. Do it once more for luck. Sounds good to me. So it's simple as that. All your ingredients in one go. And then we've got this really beautiful, soft pink drink that's going to come out of it. So I'd use a martini glass or a coupe like this. And just 2/3 fill with your pretty...
Oh, look at that. I am driving over.
And then,
In my
because
motor.
we love a bit of decoration and it's Valentine's, we want to make it special. We're going to float the cream on top. So actually I'll do that now, thinking about it. Need a spoon. So just get a spoon with your aerated cream and hold it to the edge of the glass, just where the drink that's in there is already sitting. So it doesn't want to be buried into it, just wants to sit on the top. And then we're just going to float the cream on top. Go quite steady with it if you've aerated it properly. I'm just going to help that across because it's quite a wide drink on this occasion. And can you see the separation of it? Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh, it looks amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Even with a hangover, it looks amazing.
That's what you need when you've got a hangover.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a lot paler than I thought it was going to be. I got it in my head that it's going to be like proper black cherry, you know, dark, sort of chocolatey, purpley colour.
really, really delicate actually in its flavours. It's surprisingly complex. So to finish it off and to bang up that chocolatey flavour on it, because all good Black Forest gateaux have got chocolate sprinkled on top. Take a piece of greaseproof paper, and I've just folded it in half and cut half a heart shape out. You open that up, and we're just going to place that across the top of the glass. Hopefully it'll stay straight. Should lie on top of the glass, not in the glass. Straighten it out a little bit more. Okay, and then we just take strainer, little sieve, and some cocoa powder, and just give that a little dusting on top. And it really does make the difference. You really do want that chocolate on top, because you end up drinking the liqueur through the chocolate and through the cream. If you want to be really fancy, we'll just take a little cherry and just hang the cherry off the side.
Oh, look at that.
You see that?
Yeah, it looks fun.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
look at that. Looks amazing.
That is your Black Forest romance. And trust me, that's like the best Black Forest gâteau you've ever.
Yeah, cheers.
So,
Don't
cheers.
drink it before you've taken a lovely picture of it so that we can put it.
I won't. I'll be good.
We can show it. Right, okay, so and that sort of concludes our cookery session this afternoon. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it and you've picked up loads of fabulous tips. You guys are really lucky because you get to tap into all of our professional expertise as well. As advisors, we are on hand to answer your questions anyway. So please, if you've got any follow-up questions from this session, then do go back to your advisor. How amazing is it to be part of this community, guys? I mean, you don't get this when you buy a KitchenAid, do you? Sorry, I shouldn't. Other brands are available.
Say that.
But for now, we are going to say goodbye to you. I'll be sending over a feedback form again via email tomorrow. I'd be very grateful if you could just complete it and send it back to us, just to let us know how you found today. Although I think the comments in the chat say it all, really. But thank you again to my advisors for helping out today. Thank you for joining us. And we will be back in February with another amazing class for you.
Thanks, Lindsay. We'll stop recording.
Yeah, brilliant. And then if we